Live from the House of LeMay Makeup and Dressing Room.
Here comes Amber. Stop what you're doing. Here comes Amber. She's just doing what she can. Here comes Amber. Cue the spotlight. Here comes Amber with 2 drinks in her hand. The matriarch of fashion, secrets to her glasses. You can't look away. Ask her, does she do it? There's really nothing to it. She's got that feminine yay. If you have a party, or if you're feeling naughty, call up the House of LeMay. Here comes your favorite gal. Here comes your queen. Here comes the talk of the town. And we're live tonight. The music starts playing. It's time for cabareting. And we're live tonight.
It's barely been a week since Ron DeSantis dropped his presidential run, and already it feels like years. But just think, sometime in the near future, he'll be remembered for his autobiography that we all agreed to ban. His other footnote in history? He tried to fuck Disney, who slipped him a Mickey. Turns out, Ron, you're a small turd after all.
I wouldn't be able to write my book without the space that RuPaul has created. It's created an appetite for drag outside of the drag bar. And I think what that does is it allows, as Linda Simpson says, it's a high tide raises all ships.
Hello, Amber LeMay here, welcoming you to another episode of Amber Live. But first, I want you to like, share, subscribe. Thank you very much. All right, and now we've got news briefs with Duane Scott Cerny.
Well, the hunt for a Trump running mate has begun in Confederate cemeteries. Trump is looking for the strong, silent type. You know, like Mike Pence, but more successfully hung. Republicans are also considering a younger woman to bring out the youth vote, but Jeffrey Epstein's little black book has shockingly gone missing. Trying to avoid being beaten by another woman, E. Jean $83.3 million Carol, being the latest, Trump continues his blitzkrieg into South Carolina. Meanwhile, the Republican Party is prepping their makeover, though brown shirts are truly dull when your nose is the same color. Trump may have never read Mein Kampf, but I'm guessing SS Stephen the Deporter Miller has read him the Cliff Notes. He's seen here demonstrating 10 ways Trump could remain dictator for 1,000 years. Speaking of deporting, now that the only thing making the Supreme Court supreme is a pepperoni topping, Republicans can relax until their daughters get knocked up by a south of the border pizza delivery boy. Maybe they should have realized that another definition of Roe v. Wade is a method of crossing the Rio Grande. Instead of focusing on real problems, Republicans are still undecided on a campaign theme song. They write their own, but most seem to embrace the Village People's YMCA because, you know, it's easier to spell. Finally, Biden continues to hold on by mere strings, hopefully soon to be pulled by Taylor Swift, Obama, and one of Oprah's favorite things, her at-home string cheesemaker. While we await the use of these powerhouses, Democrats are gearing up with an innovatively nostalgic marketing campaign for Biden, sending personalized telegrams to every voter via non-binary carrier pigeon. Guaranteed delivery by February 2025. No shit. And that's the news in my briefs.
Thanks, Duane. Hey, Russell, come on in.
Amber, welcome back.
Yes, it's been a while, but I've been pretty busy, as you know.
You have, and that's okay.
Yeah, we've got some stories and some pictures from Winter Rendezvous. We'll do that later on in the show. But tell people what's the best way to watch tonight.
Well, the best way to watch is on YouTube, and that's because on YouTube, Amber's in full HD, and all your friends are in the chat room. So go to youtube.com/Amber Live if you aren't already there. And then after the show, check out our TikTok, our Instagram, our Facebook, and our incredible website that's going, amberlive.tv. And if you can't watch Amber, you can always listen to the interviews on your way to work. Anywhere you can find a great podcast, you can find the Amber Live interviews. So Amber is everywhere, and she's
Yes.
back.
For tonight, yes, I am. All right. So what else do you want to talk about, Russell?
Well, the bustiers. We love our bustiers, and we've got 3 for the new year, and we're thankful that they're there, but we'd like to add to that list. And we've got Malta Scott and Flower Fan and Reno B. And if you'd like to be a bustier, use that Venmo at RJD Pro, or use the amberlive.tv website and look for the support Amber button, and you can make a donation to help us pay our bills. And we have a couple birthdays coming up this month. Mine on the 11th, and Amber's is a little later in the month. So if you'd like to make a birthday donation, and you can become a bustier, it's a great time to do it. So please help us out. And speaking of my birthday, it's falling on Super Bowl Sunday this year. I will be at Drag Bingo with our past guest Angela Mansberry, and we are going to watch the halftime show, but that's probably about it. But we are taking that week off because Super Bowl is just too busy. People are doing other things, so be aware that for Super Bowl we won't be here.
Getting back to the bustiers there, those 3 names you see, if they look familiar, if you're watching on YouTube, you can see them chatting in the guests during the show too. So thank you very much for your monetary support and your chatting as well.
Yeah, and they'd love to hear from you in the chat room. So reach out to them during the show. Say hi.
Yes. All right. Tell us about tonight's show.
Tonight's show, we have the Rooster, or actually DJ Byrnes is here to join us. He's from Ohio, and he ran a political campaign out there that we're going to hear all about. And he now has a column on Substack called The Rooster, where he breaks a lot of crazy stories that happen in Ohio. So I think you're going to enjoy this one.
After losing a political race in Ohio, DJ Byrnes took on a new role, political activist and gonzo journalist. He's got quite the story to tell. Here are some clips.
My name is DJ Byrnes, candidate for state representative. I'm a 31-year-old Piqua resident and senior editor of 11warriors.com. I joined this race in July because I could no longer in good conscience remain on the sidelines while privileged politicians rewarded their corporate sponsors at the expense of working people.
So did you write this?
Yeah, I wrote every word.
So what's the idea behind the words?
I'm running because guys like me are supposed to stay on the sidelines. I know so many people throughout my life that would make great public servants. Humble, they're smart, and they understand that people should come before profits.
What's your name?
My name is DJ Byrnes. I run the Rooster.
You run the what?
The Rooster.
What is that?
You can ask some friends back there. They know me. Reb Dobos, any comment on you lying for 30 years about having an MIT degree? I mean, what's going on with that, brother?
All I'll say is that we're looking forward to the future of how we're going to be continuing to serve our constituents in my district, and I erred in what I did.
Well, I mean, what would you say to? I mean, you were president of the Columbus City School Board, man, as a high school graduate. I mean, yeah. So in Ohio, if a 10-year-old were raped and she can legally have an abortion today. Yeah, but you're trying to end that. Yeah. So how? So okay. We're not there. But so how would that work in your society then? If a 10-year-old has a kid and there's no abortion allowed, how would you justify?
We would help her, actually. Make sure
you're going to help a 10-year-old have a child. I got a question for you, Mean Gene. Your top aide, your former top aide, Joe Braun, right? You're pro-life as they come, pro-life Republican. You want the 10-year-old rape to have their rapist baby. You called it an opportunity, correct? Do you have any comment on Joe Braun getting an abortion for his mistress? It's on audio recording. I talked to my friend Chris Hicks about it. I mean, come on, brother. It looks bad if you run.
Not running from you.
I mean, you're running right now. I mean, I'm a citizen. I'm a citizen of Ohio. You work for me, technically.
Oh my goodness. I love this guy already. DJ Byrnes, come on in.
Hi, how are you?
Oh, I'm fine.
I was walking down memory lane.
That. I love that. All right. So back in 2018, you decided to run for state representative from the Piqua or Central Ohio. It's
Western,
more,
yeah, it was out in Western, yeah, right down 75 from
yeah.
Lima.
Yeah, that I know Lima very well. So you said why, but what really prompted you to run?
Well, honestly, I was fed up with my job at the time. I was sitting there thinking about ways to bury my boss in a pool of acid out, in the desert somewhere and getting away with it. I was like, this isn't healthy. And an opportunity came to run in Ohio. 2018 was a big year. Trump had been elected. It was the midterms. And the Ohio Democratic Party had this thing. They wanted to run people in all 99 House district seats. And we had a guy that probably would have been a better candidate than me, had roots in the area. I believe he was a farmer, but he dropped out. And then the opportunity came to run for State House. And, I was like, I'll do it. I'm bored. I've got nothing better to do. And I never do anything. It's my addict brain. Moderation really isn't my forte. So I quit my job, dove headfirst into it, thinking, the district how it was, I knew I was going to lose, some stroke of God. But I was, trying to propel Democrats in the rural areas and help the statewide candidacies, and we all went down. But it was a good life lesson, and I don't regret running at all. I'm glad we stood on our principles.
So what has happened to Ohio? I mean, Howard Metzenbaum was a senator. John Glenn was a senator. Dick Celeste was governor. I mean, the three top offices were held by Democrats, and now none of them. Well, Sherrod Brown.
Sherrod Brown is the only one left, and statewide Democrat, and he's got a fight on his hands. Regardless, there's a bitterly contested three-way Republican primary right now, and Sherrod Brown will have the fight of his life on his hands in November, no matter who wins that. As for Ohio, how much time do we have? It pretty much started when the John Kasich era, when the Tea Party, Ohio elected our first gay, Muslim, Black, communist president in Barack Obama. And then the Tea Party came into power, and we elected this guy, John Kasich, who is on MSNBC now as the last sane moderate, but he was elected on the Tea Party backlash. And they swept offices, came back into power, threw our last Democratic governor in the trash. And they basically looked at Ohio and were like, okay, how can we prevent this from ever happening again? And they gerrymandered the state legislature with pinpoint precision. And I mean, there's emails where they refer to, Franklin County, a Democratic, Columbus, Ohio, where I live now, as a sinkhole and dog meat. We'll throw them the dog meat voters. And they just successfully leveraged their power on a state level for the last 10 years. And the idea that, Trump, we elected Obama twice, but then Trump came back. We elected him twice. I assume if he runs, when he's the nominee this fall, he'll win again. And it's just for whatever reason, between the Republicans being ruthless, the Ohio Democratic Party, for its part, hasn't proved worthy of organizing a child's birthday party, let alone statewide elections. And there just hasn't been, they haven't shown a willingness to find candidates that resonate with Ohio voters at large, despite us beating them in the special election in August, and then enshrining abortion in the Constitution in November, along with legalizing weed. So it's a long story. We could go all day on what's wrong with Ohio.
All right, there were some clips there from a documentary. Tell me about that.
So I used to work for 11 Warriors, very popular Ohio State football website, and I had a bit of a following just talking about, Ohio State being good. I think they're going to be good this year, and I developed sort of a following. And when I left 11 Warriors to run for the office, one of my readers, Benedict Xulius, he was a filmmaker out in Los Angeles, and he had just moved back to Ohio. And he had this idea of covering my race out in Western Ohio, and he wanted my opponent to be in it too, and kind of just a small town state legislative race in Ohio, with the backdrop being the blue wave and stuff like that with the national politics. And my opponent really didn't participate in it too much until the end. I don't really think she trusted the LA filmmakers, but I thought it turned out really well. Unfortunately, had I won, we could have gone to Sundance. But that's what I told them the night that I lost. I cost them Sundance, and then unfortunately the pandemic happened right after that. Right when it got released, so all the film festivals and stuff we were going to do got scrapped. And my understanding, it's it's done well in every film festival it's got in since, but it's it's just kind of there as a marker now in my life of. It feels like another lifetime ago, honestly.
All right. How did you start the Rooster?
So the Rooster, I had a blog in high school that was called The Rooster that was pretty much just about things that every 16-year-old kid hates about their high school. And, everybody's dumb except for me. My teachers suck. I'm way smarter than them. It was just terrible type of, long story. I got in some trouble with it. But then after my race, I was drinking too much, if you could believe that. I've been sober now since August 2022. But at that time, I was, drinking pretty heavily. I had quit my job, and I thought, well, I knew I was going to lose, but I'll go work for I'll impress somebody else with my campaign, and I'll go work for somebody else that wins. Well, we all got beat. Way better, it helped me at my loss anyway. But I really didn't know what was next. And I was sitting there, and then I read about Substack, which is kind of like, for a platform for writers to kind of be their own boss and develop their own platform. And so I was like, you know what, I'm just going to start this. And I couldn't think of a name. Knew I wanted to do it because I had a bit of a following on social media, and couldn't think of a name. And the girl I was dating at the time, God bless her soul, she was like, you know what about the Rooster? Why don't you just call it the Rooster? And it's stuck since then. So now I just tell people, when people ask about it at the State House, I just say, the Rooster is a dumb barnyard animal that crows at all hours of the day, but it will defend its turf to the death. So it's kind of the ethos I try to bring to the table with it.
Is there money involved in that?
Oh yeah. It's actually funny because I've started going up to the State House. It's become a lot more profitable. It used to just be kind of a daily rant from your neighborhood drunk that was like entertaining guy to sit next to at the bar, but you really wouldn't put him in charge of too much. But since I've started going up to the State House and being sober and taking it more seriously, it's become more lucrative. So, but I've also talked to people up there. There's a lot of Republicans that thought for a while that I was a homeless guy living under a bridge. I made a comment, I'm going to go hang out with my wife. And they're like, you have a wife? And I was like, yeah. They're like, you have a house? I was like, I have an overpriced downtown apartment. I don't have a house, but I thought they thought I was a homeless guy living under a bridge, typing from a library or going and taking showers in public restrooms. And I guess just has a passion for covering state politics. And then other people have accused me of being bankrolled by some rich state legislators who find my work humorous. So I kind of say it's somewhere in between being homeless and, living as a sugar baby like I wish I was. But it's enjoy. I do well enough for myself. I'll say that much.
All right, DJ, we're going to take a little break right now, but when we come back, we're going to talk about how the Wall Street Journal wrote about you, which is fascinating. We'll be right back. We've got more with DJ Byrnes, but first, let's bring back Russell.
Hey, I can't wait for the rest of the DJ Byrnes interview. It's fantastic.
Yes, it is. So people have been missing me. They, where's Amber? Well, I've been busy because for the 14th year, Michael Wilson hired Lucy Bell and I to go down to Stowe, Vermont to Winter Rendezvous, the East Coast's largest gay ski weekend. And there's 400 or so happy GLBTQ plus skiers for 4 or 5 days. On Wednesday night, Lucy and I hosted the bowling event, the welcoming bowling party. We had so much fun. Because we've been doing it for all these years, we've got to know these guys pretty well, and we had a lot of fun with them, and we always look forward to seeing them. And then on Thursday night, we saw Dina Martina. And I'd never talked to Dina Martina, and I'd only seen her perform once. A pretty solid show. It was nice to have that. And then on Friday morning, Lucy Bell and I were at the Pride Run. They had skiers coming down the slope with the rainbow flags, and we were there cheering them on. And I did a snow angel. Russell, show that clip of me doing a snow angel.
Your legs.
Yeah. Oh, why not with that snow angel? When in Stowe, play in the snow. And then on Friday, Michael had this great dinner for us with a wine pairing. Oh my God, was that good at the top-notch resort. Oh, was that delicious. And then on Saturday, we hosted drag bingo. Oh, there was like 250 people there. We raised a lot of money for a charity in Boston. And then Saturday night, we saw our friend Paige Turner, who was on the show just 2 weeks ago, and she was great. We got to add her to our list of shows to see in Provincetown this summer. She was just really a fun show. So yeah, we were pretty busy, and it took us a couple days to rest and recuperate from that.
Oh, I bet. Oh, well, I'm glad you had fun. I want to get back to that interview, but first of all, I do want to remind people to go check out the Amber Live store, and don't forget that we've got these great new products with Paul Verberg's beautiful image of a cowboy on them from a Reno gay rodeo in the 80s, I believe. That was one of his first professional images, I think. And we've also got some Vintage Confidential collection, and we've got all these Pride and Drag Pride products. So go check out the store at the amberlive.tv, and it's another way you can help us out. But now back to the interview.
All right, we're back with DJ Byrnes. Now, DJ, there's an article about you in the Wall Street Journal. Tell us about that.
Well, it was definitely the most infamous article I've written. It's not the most read or not the most I've ever made money on, but definitely the most infamous. Basically, I was drinking at the time, and I used to cover Ohio State football, and I basically scooped the national press on a story of Urban Meyer getting a lap dance in his own restaurant in the most busy neighborhood in Columbus, the Short North. If you're from Columbus, everybody knows it. Yep. And he's one of those famous guys ever in his own restaurant doing this. Yep. And
okay, time out.
Yeah.
A lot of my viewers would have no idea who Urban Myers is. Urban Myers was a professional football coach. Then he was the coach at The Ohio State University. Yeah. Then he moved down to Florida, and this is when that happened. Okay.
Yeah, he was coaching with the Jacksonville Jaguars at the time. So he had won a national championship at Ohio, kind of left Columbus in a scandal, but was still wildly popular enough to have his own restaurant. And he lost to the Bengals on Thursday Night Football, lied to his team, didn't fly home with his team, instead came up to Columbus to celebrate one of his friend's birthdays, and by all accounts had a couple too many Bud Lights, and he got exposed. So, he was in the middle of a restaurant and people filmed him getting a lap dance. Well, he got up there and he lied to his team, and he said, there was just some young woman. I was out enjoying some beers with my friends, and some young woman was trying to entice me onto the dance floor. You know how it goes. But he didn't realize there was a second shooter in the club that night. And one of my friends hit me up. He was like, "Have you seen the second video?" And I was like, "No." And so he sent me the second video, and it was from the woman in question, from her Snapchat. And it was clearly Urban Meyer, putting his hands where they shouldn't be, sealing all accounts of what it should be. And it was a scandal. It really rocked the credibility with his team. And he was fired before the year was over. But I was a union electrician at the time, and he was pretty vindictive. And his foundation had a business relationship with my union and my contractor, and I was just a year one apprentice at the time, so they got me out of there for that. But the beat goes on, as they say.
Some other articles that you've published. Let's see some of those. All right, what happened here?
So this is actually this is my opponent from from the 2018 race. Jenna Powell, she was 24 at the time, youngest member of the state legislature, and I'm sure on election night of that night she's probably thought, well, I never have to deal with that joker ever again. And I started popping up at the State House, and I heard a rumor. I heard one of her fellow Republicans remark to me that it's like, she's living down in Darke County, right? Or living down in Mason, down in Warren County, which is about 75 miles outside of her district. So I've got, it's not it's a one-man band in the front, but I have a bunch of people that like researching this stuff, but they don't want their name on it. So I put one of my researchers on it, and she found mortgage statements with her husband saying like, we're going to, move into this house by this date and live in it for so many days consecutively to satisfy, our mortgage, which overlapped with the election. So she was either she was doing mortgage fraud, which would be a bad thing for her husband because he's a big time realtor, or she was just doing voter fraud and voting in Darke County instead of, switching up her registration. And it was a big time story. It's Ohio. Republicans protect Republicans, and she didn't suffer any consequences for it. But she's recently resigned. She's not running for re-election. So when I beat her, she could have been. People were saying she was going to be the governor, and now she's going to be. She's out after 3 terms instead of doing the 4. So that's definitely one of the bigger ones.
All right, next, Russell.
Oh, Daniel Kalmbach. So this guy, and this is the thing. Like I had a state senator tell me one time, 90% of voters only care about who the president is, and so they don't know these state your state legislator folks. It's very important. Like you should know who these people are. They honestly affect your life more than they do in D.C. But Daniel Kalmbach is the son of. This guy, a big-time Republican donor. They own Kalmbach Feeds. His dad's a member of the Heritage Foundation, which is like, $10,000 minimum donation. Is donated to the Jim Jordans, the Bob Lattas, anywhere. Like he's a heavy hitter and a donor. And so his son, he graduated law school, failed the bar 3 times, got a DUI in 2022. And in which he threatened the woman, totaled her car, threatened her, was like, do you have any idea who I am? And she's like, no. And so he's resurfaced as a state house candidate in Licking and Perry County, basically on the other side in Eastern Ohio, where he's from. And he's basically running as a family first. I mean, we all know the type, the family first, Christian values type of conservative. But if you go through his Venmo history, he was clearly, purchasing party drugs. His social media history was like littered with him. He obviously like enjoyed going to raves and like seeing, drag shows and stuff. And which is, if you're going to drink and drug and party like that, that's fine with me. Lord knows I've done a lot of that. But what kills me about these guys is they won't just go do that. Like, just go be some rich kid and go party with your friends and go live that lifestyle. But instead, he's trying to come back to the Ohio legislature as a, some farmer. Like he wears like $800 Gucci shoes, $2,000 Louis Vuitton backpacks. But then in his campaign ads, he's like, shoveling pig manure and saying you can tell a lot by a man and his code. And just a complete fraud. But it's Ohio, so he could win.
Okay, next story.
Ooh, Denny's ice cream. This is actually my most popular, the most read, most money making, most popular article of all time. Jenny's Ice Creams, which has a national brand, started in Columbus. Nancy Pelosi's a big fan of it. You know, she keeps it in her $25,000 freezer. But if you look at Jenny, like, Jenny Britton, if you look at her social media page, I need to speak to her drug dealer because she has access to some incredible, like, I don't know what, like, incredible stuff. She just travels the world and she's just basically like insane. Like, she talks about being related to the Salem witch trial witches and, which I'm fine with, you know what I mean? Like, I'm generally in favor of rich people showing other people how insane they are, so that we're not under any delusion that they're smarter than us. But I started talking to some people who used to work for her company, and everybody's like, you should just write an article on how they came up and the brand. And I just had this outpouring of articles where I basically didn't even edit it because I was, just drunk at the time. It was just former workers from all levels, whether like it was, office white collar all the way down to like working in the warehouse where they had like something called the poop closet. It was just contaminated and stuff. It was just a horribly run company, treated its workers like absolute garbage and had 2 listeria outbreaks, which made national news, but has somehow, weathered that. She sold it. She sold the company that she started. Like, her ex-husband financed it. Basically, they got divorced. She sold it, and now I think they're still trying to sell it right now. But it's a national brand, and she made it. It's the American dream: exploit a bunch of workers, and then you just get to post how you want on Instagram stories all day.
Do we have one more, Russell?
Oh, yeah. So this one, actually, my friend was a beloved bartender in the Short North. Again, it's just imagine any arts district that a Midwest city has, a big, drag strip down the middle. But my buddy was working as a bartender in the Short North, and he was walking, got off a shift, got a gyro, and he was walking back to his car or whatever, and got into a confrontation with these bouncers he got in a conversation at the CD bar, and they were going to try to fight. They squared up. He dropped his hands and went to turn away, and the second friend came up and sucker punched him and square rooted him, hit his head in the back, fell, hit his head in the street. Doctor said he probably died then, but if he didn't, they stood over him, punched him, slapped him, cussed him out, robbed him, and then left him there in the street for about, which is, again, this is the most popular district on Labor Day weekend. And I know all that because these guys went home and they uploaded it to Facebook, which, as horrible as it was seeing my friend get murdered in that way, I'm thankful they did, because honestly, like 50% of murders go unsolved in this city. So, I'm thankful for that. They were dumb enough to do that in that regard. And that trial actually starts tomorrow. So it's gone, and they're going to try to say that he started the confrontation or whatever, but the video speaks for itself. So they're going to go away for a long time, but it's tough. It's tough, but Ohio, in typical fashion, now this week we're also trying to bring back the death penalty, and it's like, my best friend was murdered. I don't want these guys murdered by the state. I put them in prison where they belong for the rest of their lives, and so they can think about it.
Make them suffer. Make them suffer. Do you have any? Do you have any? I don't want to say goals, but do you have any big story that you'd really like to sink your teeth into?
Oh, again, how much time do you have? The big one the two big ones that I would like to write would be the Ohio Farm Bureau. Like most people just think, they picture the Farm Bureau and it's just a mom and pop operations, humble. It's like, no, these guys, it was started by Nationwide Insurance. Not a lot of people know that. And they basically, Nationwide has gotten like so much bigger than them, and they can still control who sits on that board. And they are one of the most powerful lobbyist groups in the state that nobody really thinks about. And it's not mom and pop stores that they go to bat for. It's these large agricultural corporations. And they do stuff like, Lake Erie up by Toledo and stuff. They have the toxicology blooms now in the summer. Yeah. Well, that's because we let the farmers just dump anything they want into the rivers. and the corruption with that, the power that they have, and also just with the farm subsidies. That's what kills me about these guys. Like farmers, they're the biggest, not to just use the phrase that Reagan invented, they're the biggest welfare queens in the game.
Yes.
And that's pretty much how they control, they keep the farmers in line and voting Republican is because they control all the subsidies and how that flows out to them. And I would also like to do one on the Ohio Department of Transportation and just how Ohio became, we're the largest state in the country without passenger rail. And we're just completely, I always joke with some ODOT employee on social media the other day. I was like, it's called the Ohio Department of Transportation, not the Ohio Department of Cars. And their former like director was called Johnny Ray. They called him the asphalt sheriff. Now I know enough about Ohio where it's like you don't just get a nickname like the asphalt sheriff without just some corruption going on. And I would just like to dig into the history of that and how they successfully killed the vibrant streetcar systems that we had in Cleveland, Columbus, Cincinnati, even mid-sized cities like Dayton, and basically have fought passenger rail in a state that would be perfect for it, and stuff like that. So it's like I say, Ohio being what it is, it's good for business, I guess.
Well, J.D. Byrnes, thank you so much. You're fascinating. I love your style. I love what you're going after. Keep doing it. And come back here if you ever have a great story you want to break. We'd love to hear about it.
Anytime. Thank you, Amber, for the opportunity.
Thank you. I love that guy. Oh my.
Today we're about to find out which tastes better. A homemade McRib or one that's been in the freezer for 3 years. You probably remember I made some McRib patty meat before. This one is left over. This is a nice fresh McRib. This one. November 22nd, 2021. The homemade patty. Cut the onion, cut the bread, get your barbecue sauce, flip that thing. Now's the part I'm terrified about. I read that McRibs could be frozen up to 60 days. This has been in the freezer for 3 years and 2 months. So I'm not good at math, but I'd say that's 3 years too long. I don't know what it's gonna look like. Hey, parchment paper. There it is. That is a 3-year-old McDonald's McRib. Place it nice and gentle on a cookie sheet with tinfoilies on it. Stick it in the oven. 8 minutes. Now it looks like our homemade McRib is ready to be put on the bun. It's a bigger bun than I thought. Still looks good though. Sprinkle some onions on it, some barbecue sauce, and sandwich number 1 is done. Sounds like it's ready. This has been 3 years in the making. All right, this is it. This is the big moment. A freshly made homemade McRib. A 3-year-old McRib. In the freezer for 3 years. All right, homemade McRib. Moist and delicious. I hope to God I don't throw up. It's still all right. 3-year-old McRib. Maybe I don't recommend it, but you know. Better than no McRib. Two fists in the McRibs.
Love that, Rocco.
I just love talking to interesting people like that. Thank you, DJ. All right. Another interesting person we have on the show quite a bit is Rocco Zamboni. What you got for me, Rocco? Thank you, Rocco. Just a reminder, we will not be on next week because we're going to be cheering on Taylor Swift at the Super Bowl. But the following week, on February 18th, our guest is Brandon Del Cid. Now, Brandon, it plays Jennifer Lopez's gay best friend in their new movie, This Is Me Now. It comes out on Amazon Prime on February 16th, and he talks about it. It's a great interview. He's a fun guy. You're going to learn a lot about him and Jennifer Lopez and the business. That's on February 18th. Until then, Boog and Shoog, show me what you got.
Hey, ever heard of a flashlight?
Oh, yeah. My dad's got 3 or 4. He says he uses them all the time.
What do they do?
I don't know, but they sure seem to make him happy.